أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. تبارك الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. تبارك الذي خلق الأرض والسماوات العلى. تبارك الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وما بينهما وما تحت الثرى. تبارك الذي له الأسماء الحسنى. نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله الرب الواحد الأحد الأعلى، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله، والسلام على من اتبع الهدى. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله عز وجل، وخير الهدي هدي رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا يقول الله عز وجل بعد أن أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: إن الذين جاءوا بالإفك عصبة منكم لا تحسبوه شرا لكم بل هو خير لكم لكل امرئ منهم ما اكتسب من الإثم والذي تولى كبره منهم له عذاب عظيم. صدق الله العظيم. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the blessed King who reigns with love from on high. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the precious beloved whose love we cannot possibly deny. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the merciful Lord who hears every gasp and knows every cry. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the noble liege who does not deceive and does not lie. Nothing else is worthy of worship but He, the one God whom we should never belie. And all peace and blessings be upon His beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Upon Him be peace, whom we love and in whom God's eternal love resides. As to what follows, last week we talked about the fact that despite the divisions we may have in our community, especially over politics or religious belief or philosophy, at the end of the day, we are one family. We need each other. We should never lose sight of that. And I referenced the story of the slander of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, and I encourage every one of you to read the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. It is a very, very, very long hadith that tells the entire story of the slander of Aisha from the perspective of Aisha herself. She herself tells the story. And it was narrated upon the authority of her nephew, Urwa ibn Zubair, the younger brother, I believe, of Abdullah ibn Zubair. And it's her nephew because his mother, Urwa's mother, is Asma bint Abi Bakr, who is her sister. So he had direct access to our mother Aisha anha because it's her nephew. It's his maternal aunt. So she tells the entire story, and I recommend you look it up. It's on sunnah.com. Put in the ifk, the slander, and the entire hadith comes very, very long. And we're going to talk about the story here and glean some lessons from the story. There are so many lessons from the story of the slander of Aisha radiallahu anha, a very painful part in the seerah of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it begins after the battle of Bani al-Mustaliq. So the Prophet after Uhud, after Khandaq rather, the Prophet went after all of the tribes that gathered together to come and attack Medina. Yeah, that was not going to go unanswered. So one of the tribes was Bani al-Mustaliq. They had a battle. The Muslims won. The Prophet married the daughter of the chieftain. Everything happened. On their way back, it's a very big army. On their way back, a mawla, meaning a freed slave of Umar radiallahu anhu, got into a fight with a mawla of the Ansar over water. Because a big army, there's only one water supply. So I don't know what happened. They got into an argument. And they started fighting. So the mawla of Umar radiallahu anhu says, Ya al-Muhajirin, I need help from the Muhajirin. The mawla from the Ansar said, Ya al-Ansar. And then Muhajirin and Ansar everyone came, and they were about to fight over water. And this reached the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was furious. And he came quickly, and he told them, Abi da'wati al-jahiliyyah wa ana bayna dhahranikum da'uha fa innaha muntina. that you are going to call the call of Jahiliyyah, my tribe and my tribe, when I am with you, leave it, for it is filthy. Muntina. It is filthy, rotten. And they all came to their senses and they calmed down and the situation was relieved. Now, among the army at the time was Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, the chief of the hypocrites. And he heard the story. And he was among his people. And one of them was a very young boy named, I think his name was Zayd ibn al-Arqam, he was a true believer. He wasn't a hypocrite. So Abdullah ibn Ubay was saying, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, is that what really happened? And he said, these people, and he called them Jalabib Quraysh. He said, these like riffraff of Quraysh, talking about the Messenger of Islam and the Sahaba. They are like the example of old. He said, "Sammin kalbak ya'kulk." Fatten your dog, and he'll turn around and eat you. And he said, you guys are the ones that allowed them to be like this. You're giving them charity. You're helping them out. He said, Wallahi, لَإِن رَجَعْنَا إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ, when we go back to Medina, لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلَّ, that the mighty one will kick out the humiliated ones. He meant them. They're going to finally expel the Muhajirin and the Messenger from Medina. That's what he said. Zayd ibn al-Arqam heard that, and he went straight away to the Messenger and told them what happened. The Messenger ﷺ knew that this was going to be a big deal. And so in the middle of the night, he said, get up and leave. We're leaving now. And he made them march all night until the next afternoon. And they said, okay, stop now. They were all exhausted, so that he doesn't want the fitna to keep rising and keep going. Okay? But people found out about it. So Zayd, and so then they went to Abdullah ibn Ubay. Did you say this? And Abdullah said, Wallahi, no, he's a liar. No, Wallahi, no, I never said that. No way, no way, no way, no way. To the point that even Zayd himself was scared that he maybe misspoke or he misunderstood, and he started crying. Then Allah revealed Quran saying, يقولون لئن رجعنا إلى المدينة لنخرجن الأعز منه الأذل ولله العزة ولرسوله وللمؤمنين. Allah affirmed the word of Zayd ibn al-Arqam. Okay, so now people are saying Umar ibn al-Khattab is like, let me just kill this guy. He's clearly munafiq. And the Prophet says, Ya Umar, أتريد أن يتحدث الناس أن محمدا يقتل أصحابه? Do you want the people to say that Muhammad kills his companions? We're gonna let it go. Okay? The son of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, Abdullah ibn Abdullah, came to the messenger and said to him, Ya Rasulullah, if there's someone to kill him, tell me to do it. Because everyone knows how much of a loyal son I am to my father, and I'm afraid if someone else kills him, that I'm going to look at the killer of my father and not control myself, and I will kill a believer and go to Jahannam because of it. So if you're going to have someone kill him, let me kill him. The Prophet says, we're going to treat him well. We're not going to do that. Okay? Now they're coming back to Medina. Abdullah ibn Abdullah sitting on the main pathway, the main doorway into Medina, with his sword like this. Everyone's passing. Then comes his father. And he puts the sword in his father's chest. He says, Wallahi, the Prophet of Allah, Rasulullah, is the Az, and you are the Adhan. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, you're not moving. You are not entering Medina until the messenger himself gives you permission. And he's like, whatever. And he's serious. He put the sword in his father's chest. And he told him, Wallahi, the messenger is Az, and you are the Adhan. You won't enter until I give permission. The messenger gives permission. The messenger got word. He says, I give him permission. And he lets him in. Now, Abdullah ibn Ubay I told you this whole story because this sets up the ifk. He's seething with rage. He's seething with rage because of this. The Quran exposed him as a liar. Now his son humiliated him in public. The messenger gave him permission. He's seething. Now let's back. Back up. When the Prophet ﷺ told the army, let's go up in the middle of the night, Aisha, radiallahu anha, it was her turn to come on the mission with the Messenger ﷺ. And the way she traveled is, this was after hijab. So the wives of the Messenger have to be completely niqab, everything, complete hijab. So the way they would travel, it was on something called a haldaj, which is like a little tent that's on two stilts tied onto the camel, and they pick up the haldaj, put it on the camel, tie it to the camel, and she goes. That's what it's called. So she went to the bathroom. Ajallakumullah, she went to the restroom, and when she came back, she realized her necklace is gone. Very, very, very valuable to her. So she went back to look for it. The Prophet gave the order to leave. They're not going to look inside the tent and see if she's there. She was not heavy. She said, I was not very heavy back then, and we didn't eat a lot. We didn't eat a lot, women back then. So they just picked it up, put it on the camel, and left, thinking that she's inside. They're not going to look and see, So when she came, the army's gone. So she said, okay, I'm just going to stay here, and they're going to figure out eventually, سَيَفْتَقِدُونِ, they're going to figure out that I'm gone, they're going to come back and pick me up. There is a Sahabi named Safwan ibn Mu'attal that was lagging behind the army, picking up whatever. He recognized Aisha anha because he saw her before hijab. And he said, Aisha, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And she had fallen asleep waiting for the army. All he kept saying is, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Aisha said, I swear, we didn't speak one word. All he kept saying is, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And so what he did is he put down his camel, he turned away, let her rise, sit, and then he led her back to the army. And she said, Wallahi, we didn't speak one word. Abdullah ibn Ubay sees this, and this is what he says. Pay attention. He says, Zawju sahibikum ma'a Safwan. The wife of your companion was Safwan. This is what he said. Wallahi ma najat minhu wa ma naja minha. Wallahi, neither was safe from the other. That's all he said. And the people started talking. And the people started talking. And the people started talking. Now, Aisha says, as soon as I got home, I got sick. Very sick. She had no idea what was being said. Zero idea. Now, people started talking. People started talking. 3 people at least then said out loud that she committed وَلِيَعَاذُ بِاللَّهِ zina. Abdullah didn't say it. Look what he said. He said, oh my God, they weren't safe. He has plausible deniability, as they say. But the people started talking, and eventually 3 people. And who were they? Sahaba. They were not munafiqeen. They were Hamna bint Jahsh, the Prophet's sister-in-law, the sister of Zainab. Mustah ibn, this is the one that's bizarre. Mustah ibn Abi Mustah, who was her cousin. And Abu Bakr was paying money to support him financially. And Hassan ibn Thabit, the official poet, like the news agency, the prophetic news agency. Those 3. Sahaba, they were not munafiqeen. They talked out loud about zina. And Aisha had no clue. But she noticed something. The Prophet ﷺ obviously knows what's being said and talked about. And now there's no wahy, no Quran, 0. And so she noticed that normally when she's sick, he's very loving and kind, and he comes and sits there, oh, how are you doing? And how? He's different. The Prophet was different. He was a little distant. He would come in and say, Kafatikum, how is she? That's it. So she noticed that the Prophet was not as lovey-dovey as he normally is. But she still had absolutely no idea what's going on. Later, as she says in the hadith, she got better. So she went out to the restroom with Mustah's mother. They go take care of the call of nature. As they're coming back, Mustah trips on her clothing and falls. And she's getting up and she's saying, Ta'isa Mistah, may Mistah be destroyed. And she's like, how could you say that? He went to Badr. He was a Badr veteran. How can you say that about him? And Mistah is shocked. Do you not know what he's saying about you? She's like, no. And she told the whole story. And so she didn't know what to do. She started bawling. And she went back home and she started bawling, had no idea. And so she asked the messenger, do you mind if can I go to my parents' home to complete my recovery there? And he gave her permission. She went to her mother and she said, people were talking about this and you didn't tell me? And he showed her her daughter, never was a woman as beautiful as or in beauty with a man with a lot of other wives that it doesn't happen that when you have a woman like that that she's going to have trouble. Okay? So, but she started crying. She just couldn't believe it. The Prophet ﷺ gets up now and says out to the people on the minbar, and he tells them, who will relieve me of the person who is giving difficulty with my family? Because I never knew anything but good about my family, about my wife. And the man who I never knew anything wrong about him, and he never entered my house except with me. Okay? So I'm trying to now get the exact, so one of the Sahaba, I'm trying to get his name from the hadith. He said, here we are, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, okay, who was the head of Al-Aws. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I'll take care of him. If it's from one of our brothers, we will take care of him for you. And if it be from our brothers, the Khazraj, tell us and we'll take care of him. Sa'd ibn Ubadah is now Khazraj. He gets up and says, Kadhabta al-amr Allah. Wallahi, you're lying. You only said that because you know he's from the Khazraj. Abdullah ibn Ubay was from Khazraj. And if it was from Aus, you would not say that. He got that up. Then Abbad ibn Bishr, who was from the Aus, he said, Kadhabta, he told Sa'd ibn Ubadah, you are lying. And you are a munafiq, defending munafiqeen. And they started fighting with the messenger sitting on the pulpit. Sa'd ibn Ubadah and Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, two giants of the Ansar. And the Prophet got down and calmed everything down. So then he said, the Prophet says, let me talk to my close family. So he talked to Usama ibn Zayd, like his grandson, and Ali ibn Abi Talib. And he said, what should I do? Should I divorce her or not? Usama ibn Zayd said, we know Aisha, this is impossible, this is kadhib. No. Ali radhiyallahu anhu is more practical. He's like, Ya Rasulullah, an-nisa kathir. Yeah, there are a lot of women. Why, if this one's giving you a hard time, Allah doesn't force you to keep her. There's a lot of women. But, to be fair, ask her maid servant, Barira, about her. Because she's with her all the time. So they went to Barira. Now think about it, Barira's terrified. What's happened? Have you seen anything to raise suspicion about? They're asking Barira. And then Ali is like, Usduqi Rasulullah, tell the truth. So she said, Wallahi, nothing. But one day, listen to this. One day she fell asleep and she left some dough out in the open and the goat came and ate it. That's the only thing. Look at what was her thing about Aisha? That she left some dough and goat came and ate it. That's the only thing I could say about her. Okay? Now finally the Prophet ﷺ, this is now 40 days with no wahi, nothing. Now let's stop there. We'll keep going and talk about the lesson. 40 days. Finally, the Prophet ﷺ goes inside. He sits down in front of Aisha. She's crying. And he says, Ya Aisha. He said, Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu Amma ba'd, Aisha. You know that if you are innocent, Allah will declare you innocent. If you committed a sin, seek tawbah and Allah will forgive you. For those who admit, will forgive. And she's shocked. And she told her mother, or her father, answer Rasulullah on my behalf. Abu Bakr says, I don't know what to say. Told her mother, answer Rasulullah. She said, I don't know what to say. And she said, Wallahi, I'm not gonna to Allah. I'm not gonna ask tawbah because if I said what Allah knows is wrong, you would believe me. But if I But if I deny it, you won't believe me. So I have nothing else to say but what. And she said at that time I didn't know a lot of Quran, and she forgot the name of Yaqub alayhi salam. What Abu Yusuf said, "Sabrun Jamil, wallahu al-musta'an wa la ma tasif." And then she turned her back to them. And then at that moment, the wahy came. And listen to this. She said, I never thought that I was worthy of Quran being revealed about me. I didn't think that I was worthy enough that Allah would reveal Quran about me, but I was hoping that perhaps the Prophet would have a dream declaring my innocence. That's what she said in that hadith. The wahy came down and the Prophet was so happy. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, Abshiri, Allah has declared your innocence. And he revealed the 10 verses of Surah An-Nur that will go over. And so her mother said, get up and thank Rasulullah. She said, I'm not going to thank Rasulullah. I'm only going to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She was angry and hurt. Now, let's go over the Quran that was revealed. Now, let's stop there. If the Messenger ﷺ made up the Quran, would anyone who is a charlatan wait 40 days and let this go and create discord and division and fitna and everything if the Prophet ﷺ made up the Quran? You think anybody who's a charlatan making up, or would it come right away? No, she's innocent. 40 days and people were talking. And the Quran didn't come down. Why? To teach the believers a lesson. And to further confirm the veracity and the truth of our messenger, because no charlatan will wait 40 days. Let's think about that. Here's the verses. It was a group from among you that concocted the lie. Now, right away, from the first few, ifk is big lie, huge lie. That's what the word ifk means. That's the beauty of the Quran. He didn't have to say, they're lying, and let me tell you why. That word ifk, immediately Allah says, this is a huge lie. It was a group from among you that concocted the lie. Do not consider it a bad thing for you. It was a good thing. And every one of them will be charged with the sin he has earned. He who took the greatest part in it will have a painful punishment. وَالَّذِي تَوَلَّى كِبْرَهُ مِنْهُمْ لَهُ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. Allah's talking about Abdullah ibn Ubay. Don't worry, I got him. لولا إذ سمعتموه ظن المؤمنون والمؤمنات بأنفسهم خيرا وقالوا هذا إفك مبين. When you heard the lie, why did believing men and women not think well of their own people and declare this is obviously a lie? I was saying, why didn't you do that? Why did you quick and started believing it? لولا جاءوا عليه بأربعة شهداء فإذ لم يأتوا بالشهداء فأولئك عند الله هم الكاذبون. Why did the accusers not bring 4 witnesses to it? If they cannot produce such witnesses, they are liars in God's eyes. ولولا فضل الله عليكم ورحمته في الدنيا والآخرة لمسكم فيما أفضتم فيه عذاب عظيم. If it were not for God's bounty and mercy towards you in this world and the next, you would already have been afflicted terrible suffering for indulging in such talk. إذ تلقونه بألسنتكم وتقولون بأفواهكم ما ليس لكم به علم وتحسبونه هينا وهو عند الله عظيم. When you took it up with your tongues and spoke with your mouths things that you did not know to be true, you thought it was trivial, but to God it was very serious. ولولا إذ سمعتموه قلتم ما يكون لنا أن نتكلم بهذا سبحانك هذا بهتان عظيم. When you heard the lie, why didn't you say, we should not repeat this? God forbid, it is a monstrous slander, buhtan. So Allah called it ifk and buhtan. يعظكم الله أن تعودوا لمثله أبدا إن كنتم مؤمنين. God warns you never to do anything like this again if you are true believers. Now, Allah is referencing what Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, I believe Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, and his wife, she said, did you hear what happened? Did you hear what they're saying about Aisha? And Abu Ayyub said, okay, would you do something like this? She's like, no way. Would I do something like this? She's like, absolutely not. Hashak. So then He said, Aisha is better than you, and Safwan is better than me. And he shut down right there. How many times? How many times? I mean, this story has so many lessons, so many, and Allah and is so relevant today as it is at the time it happened to the Messenger of Allah. We can have 10 khutbahs about this, about the lessons of the slander of Aisha. First chief among them. This further confirms the veracity of the messenger, because no charlatan would wait that long and have his wife be slandered like that. Number one. Number two, look at what started the whole thing was tribalism and racism. Ya al-Muhajirin, Ya al-Ansar. Look at what started it. Not only that, and even later, even Aisha in the hadith, she talked about Sa'd bin Mu'adh, and he was a pious man, but أخذته الحمية, but tribal affiliation took him, and he got up and he said, "You know, you would not have said that if he was among the Aus." Remember when they started fighting in front of the Messenger ﷺ, defending Abdullah ibn Ubay? He didn't. He just took him his tribalism. The old habits die hard. Old habits die hard, right? And so, what does that mean? And we'll talk more about that in the second part. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم من كل ذنب عظيم. توبوا إلى الله إن الله يحب التوابين ويحب المتطهرين واستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. And the three people who were punished by flogging were Sahaba. Sahaba, not Munafiqeen. And what does that tell you? Is that we have to be ever vigilant against our humanity. Good people got sucked into, to the point that they said zina, a'udhu billah, zina, out loud. Hamna was trying to, advocate for her sister, because the biggest rival for Aisha was Zainab. She says herself in the hadith that the biggest one in rivalry among all the wives of the Prophet was Zainab. So Hamna's trying to help her sister, in her mind, by doing something like this to put Aisha down and raise Zainab up. And she mentioned, the Prophet talked to Zainab, "What do you think?" And she said, "I have known nothing but good." And she said, Allah protected her with her piety. Her piety protected her. She says that in the hadith, right? So Hamna, Hassan, he's a poet and he's an artist. Radiallahu anhu. He's the dirt on his feet is better than me, and he's a poet and an artist. And he started saying things about her, and she said in the hadith, "I don't like anyone saying bad things about Hassan in front of me, because he made up for his mistake." And then her cousin, Mustah, her own relative. That's the most bizarre. So what does that tell us? We have to be ever vigilant against our own humanity. We have to be ever careful not to let our guard down. Because in this story, good people got sucked into the slander. Good people, Sahaba, and they were punished. So we have to be ever careful, always careful, ever vigilant. Never let their guard down, because Shaitan's assault is relentless. And there's so many more lessons, but those are the few, because time is against us. Those are the few things. Most importantly, old habits die hard. It didn't take much for that tribalism that the Prophet worked so hard to try to break to come back up. We have to be ever vigilant against the weaknesses we have as human beings. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and give us the strength to be vigilant against the weaknesses we have as human beings. May Allah give us the strength to rise above those weaknesses to be the best believers possible. Ya Allah, whenever we slip off the path, please turn towards us in beautiful mercy, despite the ugliness of our sin. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار وأجرنا من النار يا عزيز يا غفار، وادخلنا الفردوس الأعلى واحشرنا مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واستغفروه يغفر لكم وأقم الصلاة.